We are 12 days away from the start of the college football season, so it's time for some Texas A&M bold predictions.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. I am your host, Matt Galatzan, publisher of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by Harrison Reno, my usual Tuesday, Thursday guest, but we're kind of changing things around on our schedule because of some things that we both have going on. You know, some football's heating up, so we got some new scheduled things going on, but this is going to be kind of our setup going forward. Listen, so football season is 12 days away, Harrison. We are getting very excited. 12th man days away from college football for Aggie fans out there. And so we decided that it would be a lot of fun today to bring you some bold predictions for Texas A&M this season. And we're not going to try and go too off the rails and do anything too crazy, but we got some predictions that, while bold, we also think are pretty realistic. But before we get into that, Harrison, I mean, it's this weekend we've got college football, don't we?
Yeah, and that's what I've been waiting for, man. Saturdays just don't feel the same. It just feels like another Friday at some points in the summer. We got actual football on TV this weekend, Matt. You know, I spent all of Saturday at the Benz watching some high school football, and when I was driving home, I was like, man, next week I get to sit on my couch and I get to watch college football for 6 straight hours. Just awesome.
It is awesome, man. It is awesome. I couldn't even tell you who's playing this weekend yet because I just got back from vacation and I still need to look. I can't remember. I think there's a Big 12 game maybe this weekend. There's some other college football this weekend, but we're focused on the Aggies today. So let's get into our bold predictions, Harrison. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say Texas A&M has their best record that they have had as a football team since the Johnny football days, when they went 10-2 in 2000 or 11-2, I believe it was, in 2012 under Kevin Sumlin. You know, Johnny Manziel exploded onto the scene that season. It was one of the best seasons in Aggie football history, and I'm going to give you my path to Texas A&M reaching this milestone as well. And as a result, of course, they're probably also going to be a college football playoff contender, which, you know, if you go 10-2 in the regular season in the SEC, you're probably not only an SEC title contender, you're a college football playoff contender for sure. But here is my path to Texas A&M making it to 10-2. All right, you get your first two out of the way with UTSA and Utah State. The first big one here for me, they beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I think that's not outside of the realm of possibility. I think they're going to be much improved on defense, stopping the run, even though Jeremiah Love's going to be a tough ask. Notre Dame still doesn't have their starting quarterback figured out, so I think A&M's going to have a slight advantage there, and I think they're going to come out of South Bend with a win. Then I have them running the rest of the way through the schedule until they get to LSU on October 25th. They will lose to LSU there, in my opinion, for their first loss. And then they will not fall again until they face the Texas Longhorns on November 28th. That will be basically pretty much the same as last year. Basically a game that will decide who will be in the SEC championship. I know the Aggies have this 8-4 stigma attached to them based on the last, decade plus of Aggie football, but I think they finally break through this year. I think they win 10 games. And I think they are one of the hotter teams in college football heading into the postseason.
So, I mean, basically, it's just what you're predicting is, hey, it's going to be a lot like last year. They're going to start 7-0. They're going to win their first 7 games. They'll drop, obviously, the 8th game. And then that's where we'll see in terms of, are they actually going to finish the drill like they've been talking about all offseason? Are they going to go out there and take care of business versus Missouri, take care of business at home versus South Carolina, obviously take care of business for Stanford, and then you got Texas. You got the rival on the road in one of the biggest games of the season. I mean, rivalry week, hate week. Yeah. Matt, the way I look at bowl predictions is like, yeah, we can go off the rails. We can do things that, are just crazy and just have a nice clip in terms of prediction. But it's like, I think both of our predictions are something that we would feel comfortable actually believing, maybe even putting money on, in terms of like, hey, this is something we're somewhat confident in. And mine kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said. I think my bold prediction is I think A&M goes undefeated at home this year, which I was shocked to find that they've only done it once since joining the SEC, and that was in 2020. One of the lone accomplishments of the Jimbo Fisher era was going 5-0 on the 10-game schedule season. And this year, that prediction, when you look on paper, may not seem as bold as years past, because when you look at the games they have at home, outside of the cupcakes, outside of the ones that, by all means, if you don't win those games, we have some serious questions. But you look at the rest of the games. You're talking about an Auburn. You're talking about a Florida, number 15 currently, Florida. You're talking about South Carolina, who is ranked 13. Like, we're talking, okay, you're going to take care of UTSA, you're going to take care of Utah State, you're going to take care of Samford, and then you're going to have to, it's going to come down to, can you beat Auburn? Can you beat Mississippi State? Can you beat Florida? And can you beat South Carolina at home? I feel pretty confident that outside of maybe this, I think the only two games of that stretch, I think the only two toss-ups is Florida and South Carolina. And I think I feel better about A&M beating Florida than I do South Carolina, because with South Carolina, my real big question is, how does that defense look against the Lenore Sellers, who gave them issues last year? I know there are people high on DJ Lagway, and Florida's very much going to be trying to build their offense around DJ Lagway and their run game, which is going to star Jaden Ball. Going into College Station on the road early in the season, I think A&M has an edge in that game. And then you go look at November 15th, late in the year. If we're talking about an A&M team that is 9-1 at this point going into that South Carolina game, or what was it? Did I do my math wrong? Yeah, 9-1 going into that game, Matt. You have to think they're going to go out there and fight and put up a hell of a game in a hostile environment for South Carolina. I feel pretty solid about that, Matt. Outside of two games, I don't see them losing to Auburn. I don't see them, God forbid, losing to Mississippi State. It's going to come down to those two games. And I feel like if you're an Aggie fan, at the very least, you should feel pretty confident that you'll lose at least, only maybe one game. I feel like maybe that's a more confident take, but not necessarily a bold take.
Yeah, no, I think that this is, considering the fact that they've only done it once since joining the SEC, I think it's a bold prediction for sure. I mean, the 2020 season, you could even put a caveat by that, because they didn't play Ole Miss. That game got canceled. That game was supposed to be at Kyle Field. Who knows what happens there? I mean, that was Lane Kiffin's first season in Oxford. They weren't exactly world beaters at that point. They're still not. They're Ole Miss, and they still drop games that they're supposed to win and win games that they're supposed to lose. But that's not even the full home schedule. So really, if you want to get technical about it, without an asterisk, they've never really done it. So that I do think that that's a bold prediction. I think that that's a totally realistic scenario as well. I mean, you could label it as bold, but I really like what the Aggies have this year at home. I mean, I have a hard time seeing Jackson Arnold with his history coming into Kyle Field and performing well with Auburn. I don't even know if he's going to finish that game as the quarterback, to be honest. I think they could probably make a change by that point. Mississippi State, they're going to have a real tough time this year. Florida, it's DJ Lagway, can he handle a tough environment there at Kyle Field? I feel pretty good about the Aggies' chances there. The one that you really have pause about is that South Carolina game, but I feel like this is going to be a much improved Texas A&M defense. I also have them beating South Carolina. I do think Lenore Sellers is the best quarterback in college football for my money, but I just think that Texas A&M is a more complete football team, and I think that they're going to have a pretty good shot to beat South Carolina there. So yeah, I mean that's a totally, I would put money on that for sure. If I had $50 in my FanDuel account or whatever, I would feel totally comfortable putting 25 on 10-2 and 25 on the Aggies being undefeated at home. So. I think that there's the potential for a couple hiccups here and there on the Aggie schedule. Don't get me wrong. There's some trap games. I think the Arkansas game is always a tough one. You're going to Razorback Stadium. That those games are always close historically over the last 10 or so years. The Aggies have had the advantage in that series. They win the majority of those games, but they're typically pretty close. They're typically one-score games, and it's a rivalry game. So it's one of those things that could go either way. But for the most part, I feel pretty good about this Aggie football team, and I feel pretty good that both of our bold predictions could hold true here, and Aggie fans will be pretty happy with the 2025 season. Let's change gears real quick. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this insane idea from the Big Ten for a new college football playoff that I can't stand. I don't think Harrison likes it either. Maybe how this could affect the SEC overall, because with this thing, it could go either way. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by DripDrop. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, and that's why I've been loving DripDrop. DripDrop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of the leading sports drink. I always keep a few packets in my backpack when I'm out on the road, and it saved me more than once from that midday crash or during those late night trips to Kyle Field when I'm covering the Aggies. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Okay, we are back, and we are here now discussing an insane idea that was proposed by the Big Ten for an expanded college football playoff. Before we get into what that idea actually is, I want to kind of set the context here a little bit. I think 12 teams is too many for the playoff already. I didn't think 4 was enough. I think the perfect number is probably somewhere between 8 to 10. One of those two. I think 12 is too many. I don't like the idea of automatic qualifiers outside of conference champions. I don't like the idea of the Big Ten getting 4, the SEC getting 4, the Big 12 getting a certain amount, the ACC. I hate all that. I think that's all dumb. I think conference champions should get in, the highest ranked conference championship from the group of 5, and then the rest should just fill in as the college football playoff rankings, kind of fall themselves. But what the Big Ten has done here, Harrison, is they have proposed a 24 to 28 team playoff idea. And in this model, the Big Ten and the SEC would both get 7 bids. The ACC and the Big 12 would each get 5. And there'd also be 2 bids for the non-Power 4 conferences and 2 at-large teams. It would put 20 games on campus, and this was proposed by Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti to the conference on Wednesday. I hate this idea. I think this is awful. There's no way that there are 7 teams from the SEC who are capable of winning a national championship, let alone 7 teams from the Big Ten, or 5 from the Big 12, or 5 from the ACC. You like, honestly, the idea, like, you get to 16, even like the 13, 14, 15, 16, those teams, they can't win a national championship. They can't. I don't care how good, some of these fan bases think that their team is. If you went to 16 last year, who gets in? Like, you think Ole Miss is good enough to win a national championship? You think some of these other football? No, they're not. The teams that were at the bottom, Clemson, they got drubbed by Texas. SMU, they got drubbed by Penn State. Even some of these other teams in there, just like Indiana, they shouldn't have been in the playoff last year. I don't care what their record was. They shouldn't have been there. So, I mean, I think this is a horrible idea. This is almost as bad as Eli Drinkwitz's 32-team idea, which is, I mean, why don't we just let in all Power 4 teams at that point? It drives me crazy. But at a certain point, I think that we just need to stop proposing these ideas and just. And I know that there's no way they're going to bring it back down to 8 or 10, but let's just leave it at 12, Harrison.
Yeah, Matt, I'm just left here wondering. I've been wondering all offseason, where are the adults in the room? Where are they at? Because it just feels like these are just children screaming at the other. No, I don't like your idea. Here's my idea. No, I don't like your idea, but here's my idea. Like, can we get some adults in the damn room? Can we get some people to actually lead the sport in the right direction? I mean, enough of the whole NIL stuff, enough with the portal. Like, can we actually figure out the thing that is important? Like, they all have all these different problems and they all have these different solutions, but no one's actually listening to the other. Better yet, they're not even listening to what the fan bases want, to what the actual people who actually help supply that money want. I don't know many people outside of the occasional contrarian that would say a 24 team or 28 team playoff is a good idea, Matt. It's frankly a stupid idea. I hate the automatic bids for each conference, the designated bids for each conference. That's stupid. It's stupid because year to year, there's not going to be, 4 teams for the SEC that could win a national championship. It fluctuates. All right. Maybe historically there has been for the last few years, but last year, are we really thinking there's 4 teams in the SEC that probably could have won a national championship? I say no. I don't think so. 4 teams from last year. I think the year before you can say the same thing. I think maybe the year before that you can say the same thing. This is stupid, Matt. It really is. I don't know why they've decided that we just expanded. Let's expand again. Like they haven't even got through 2 seasons of the 12-team playoff, and they're already trying to expand it. They're trying to double it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, 3 teams from the SEC made it last season. It was Georgia, it was Texas, and it was Tennessee. Unless I'm missing one in there, I'm pretty sure that was it. So, do we believe that Tennessee was capable of winning a national championship last year, Harrison?
No.
Okay. Let's look at the SEC standings from 2024.
And Georgia wasn't either, Matt. We'll put that out there. Georgia in that form with Gunner, with Carson, was not going to win a national championship last year.
Well, that's fair, but I think that they had a much better shot than, say, some of the other teams in the SEC standings. Missouri finished 4th in the SEC last year. Were they capable? And this is just by standings. They finished 4th, tied with Ole Miss in the SEC standings. Were either of those 2 teams capable of winning a national championship? I don't think so. Alabama, 9-4. LSU, 9-4. South Carolina, 9-4. A&M, 8-5. Were any of those teams capable of winning an SEC championship last year? I don't think so. And I'm not trying to sound like a Texas fan because I'm not one. They were the only team in the SEC in the college football playoff last year who legitimately had a path to winning a national championship. They were they were the most complete team. Even they almost got knocked out by Arizona State. They had a chance to beat Ohio State, and I do think that if they beat Ohio State, they would have beaten Notre Dame in the national title game. But that's about it. I mean, I suppose you could come up with a path where if Alabama or South Carolina had gotten in over like an Indiana, then maybe South Carolina or Alabama could have beaten Notre Dame. I still don't think they would have. I don't think either of them would have beaten Texas in their 5-12 matchup. I don't think that either of them would have beaten Ohio State. I certainly don't think that, maybe one of them could have beaten Penn State, but I still don't think they would have beaten Penn State. I mean, I think that the SEC at that point last year was in a situation where, Georgia was a very good football team. And if Carson Beck had played to his potential, perhaps they were capable of winning a national championship, but certainly after he got knocked out against Texas, their national championship hopes were done. I like Gunnar Stockton. I don't think that he was going to drive them to a national championship.
And there's just so many things with that whole team last year that they haven't had issues with in the past. It was the most un-Georgia, un-Kirby Smart team they've had in 10 years, which makes me think, yes, like they showed they could get up for big games, but they also showed, man, when it gets rough, it was rough last year. And actually, Matt, I don't think they were capable of winning a national championship, but I do think Ole Miss could have made for some entertaining games in the playoff. And it's kind of one of the reasons I am kind of out on them this year is they finally had a defensive line that gave teams problems. Like, that was a missing piece from those other years, and they finally had it. Now, with that offense, with all that, with what Lane Kiffin can design and the players they had, like, I think they could have made some noise. But could they have beaten Ohio State? No. Could they have beaten Texas? No. Could they have beaten Notre Dame? I would have paid to watch that game. I would have. But I in the end, I don't think they would have beaten Notre Dame. But I do think maybe they give a much better showing than, say, what Georgia did last year in that quarterfinal game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do think that Ole Miss could have beaten Notre Dame because of the style of football that Notre Dame played. I think Ole Miss matched up very well against that. But then if you go and you look at who they would have faced after that, I don't think they beat Penn State.
Yeah,
so even
fair.
then, that's another team that like is not going to win a national championship. Now, if you expand it to 24 to 28 teams, I mean, like what are we even talking about here? Are we saying that? So let's look at the SEC standings again, just real quick. You know, if let me pull it up real quick, and then we can kind of talk about it. Hold on, here we go. Google's being a little slow for me. Okay, so you get to let's say that it gets to where it is, where this year, let's say next year is a 9-4 South Carolina team really deserving of being in the college football playoff? Is an 8-5 Texas A&M team really deserving of being in a college football playoff? I mean, you go down from last year's standings. It's Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, and you could say LSU or South Carolina for that 7th spot. It's like, okay, like that's not those teams aren't competing for national championships at the end. And then you go to the Big Ten, who is even less deserving of 7. It's Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, and then you get to Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota. Like what are we talking about here? Why are those teams even in a conversation for being in a postseason? I hate the idea. I think it needs to go away. Let's stick with 12. No automatic qualifiers. Top 5 conference champions, and then the other 7 just based on the standings. That's the only way to do it. And I think that if you do that format, Harrison, and the Aggies live up to the bold predictions, which we had in the last segment, of mine being 10-2 for the Aggies, your being them undefeated at home, which I think would translate into a similar record of probably 10-2, maybe 9-3 at the worst. I think they're in a 12-team playoff anyway. So this scenario wouldn't help the Aggies. I think they're in the playoff anyway if they do what we think they're capable of doing. But at the end of the day, this is just the Big Ten trying to control the trajectory of college football, and it's driving me crazy. I know you got the last 2 national champions, but your time in the sun is about to be over. I'll put it that way. I don't think the Big Ten is bringing home another one. But let's change gears real quick. We're going to wrap up the show here in the next segment. We're going to do some NFL updates for Texas A&M before we get out of here. So stick with us, and you'll hear a pretty funny story about what Shamar Stewart is forced to be doing up there in Cincinnati. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you can save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Are you tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats for you in your section. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Harrison, we're back. We got about 5 minutes left in the show. Let's hit some A&M NFL updates from the preseason this past weekend. We'll save the funny one for last because that'll kind of lighten the mood a little bit. But we had a couple of updates for Aggies that aren't so positive. First up, Nick Scorton is set to miss a significant amount of time. He had a collapsed lung this past weekend during his game with the Carolina Panthers. A scary thing. A collapsed lung is always scary. You hate to see that. It sounds like he's going to miss a significant amount of time, however.
Yeah, I really hate that for Nick Scorton because he's one of those guys that you felt like had a really good chance to make an impact right away for the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers really needed edge rushers, and Scorton was going to be, obviously, he was a premium pick for them. I think it was a second-round pick, if I remember correctly. Like, they're going to lean on him this year. Really hate to hear that. I've never experienced a collapsed lung. I don't know anyone who has, so I can't speak to the pain or just how troubling that is. But, man, best of wishes to him, and hopefully we get to see him on the football field at some point this year.
Yeah, that injury actually occurred in practice, not in the game. Practice on Thursday, so I was mistaken there. But still, hopefully he gets better soon and he gets back on the field sooner rather than later. Thoughts with him for sure. And then also another injury for the Aggies, Devin Achane. He had a soft tour lower body injury that'll keep him out somewhere between days and weeks. They haven't been specific on the timetable there, but he should be available. Mike McDaniel believes he should be available about his availability for week 1 versus the Colts. Devin Achane, just another injury there for him. He's had a hard time staying on the field and staying healthy, but hopefully he is ready to go week 1 against the Colts for the Dolphins.
Yeah, really hope he can get healthy because as he showed last year, I mean, when he's on the field, when he's healthy, he was one of the most explosive runners in the National Football League last year at times. I think he's one of the fastest players in the league last year running back, if I'm not mistaken. I think the GPS time showed that. I mean, you're talking about a Dolphins team that really needs a strong run game. They lost Raheem Morris, so they lost, or Morris, not Raheem, Morris, Mostert. They lost kind of their, they lost their insurance policy behind Achane, but hopefully he can get healthy and give them a full season because they need him. I mean, they need him. Tua's had some struggles in the passing game. Obviously, Tua's had health concerns of his own, but they need Evan Achane to be healthy.
Absolutely. And then a more of a positive update. Fan favorite Aggie Ainias Smith led the Eagles with 2 receptions for 19 yards against the Browns this past weekend. And he had a touchdown as well late in the second quarter. He seems like he's going to be kind of a number 4, number 5 wide receiver option right now for the Eagles. They just traded for John Mechie, so they have AJ Brown. They have they got a dynamic wide receiver room there, but it sounds like Ainias Smith is starting to work his way into the rotation right there.
I mean, the thing that he brings to the Eagles more than anything is his ability to play special teams, and anyone who can play special teams these days, especially at a position like receiver, will make the 53-man roster. He just got his Super Bowl ring, I'm sure, just this past offseason, so I'm sure he's definitely not hating life up there in Philly, even though he may not be as satisfied with where he is on the depth chart in terms of getting on the field at receiver.
Yeah, and so now we're going to get into we're going to close out the show with kind of a funny update about Shamar Stewart here. Obviously, he had he was part of that whole scuffle the other day when he ran into Joe Burrow during practice and everybody freaked out about it. And, you never want to ruin your hopes and dreams by hurting your starting quarterback during practice. And he certainly learned from that, I'm sure, after the reaction from his teammates. But now, according to ESPN's Ben Baby, who's an excellent reporter up there in Cincinnati, Shamar Stewart has a new responsibility with Cincinnati. He says, despite all the praise from so many teammates so far, there are still reminders that Stewart is a rookie. One of them is loading a dolly full of Mountain Valley spring water. After practice, multiple cases of the spring water are bottled in green bottles are waiting for Stewart to take into the locker room. He is responsible for keeping veteran Trey Hendrickson's personal supply fully stocked. This is, I think this is hilarious. This is just, some light rookie hazing, but it's certainly fun to hear Shamar Stewart is getting his rookie treatment up there in Cincinnati.
There's only been one rookie that I've heard stories about in terms of rookie hazing that has avoided it, just because and got away with it just because he wasn't gonna do it, and that was Des Bryant. So, no matter who you are, how successful you were, unless you're Des Bryant, you're still gonna have to have your rookie duties. And I think if you go around the league, I'm sure Shamar Stewart probably has it easier than others in terms of what his rookie hazing looks like. I think Dallas a few years ago had rookies like carrying pads, stocking team meeting rooms, like with snacks and all that. So I guess it's a rather cheap rookie hazing for Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's going to be a good player for Cincinnati. I think he's going to play a pretty big role for them this season. But he needs to learn what life is like in the NFL. So that's
It's
good that he's going to be able to figure all that out.
it's kind of ironic that he's having to stock the supply of mountain spring water for the guy who may not even be with the Bengals past this year, and Trey Hendrickson. So it's kind of like, hey, he's paying his dues right now before he fully replaces Trey Hendrickson off the edge right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have some more updates from A&M in the NFL probably early next week after the preseason wraps up this weekend. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen today. For your second listen, please check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. You can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, give me a follow over on Texas A&M Aggies on SI and on X at Matt Galatzan. Follow Harrison on X at Harrison Reno, and we will see you next time.